Virginia's legal cannabis economy should be inclusive of Virginia's small and mid-sized farmers and businesses, not just a place for massive corporations. Our goal is to become the trade association for all cannabis farmers, cultivators, processors, retailers, transporters, and testing laboratories in Virginia. Our mission is Virginia for Virginians.
Good afternoon, and welcome to the weekly podcast by the VCA, the Virginia Cannabis Association. Our regular host, Brad Wynn, is on vacation this week. I am Phil Lauer with Nutrac Hemp in Blacksburg, Virginia, and I will be hosting today's segment. The VCA, the Virginia Cannabis Association, is a lobby and trade group whose mission is to steward good, sensible, responsible adult use regulation into law into Virginia that will benefit Virginia farmers, Virginia businesses, and Virginia consumers. In today's segment, we will pivot from parsing the nuances of regulation and enforcement and take you on a step-by-step journey to show and to illustrate the transformation of flower into finished consumer-ready products. And to guide you on that journey will be David Alber, the Assistant Plant Manager here at Nutrac Hemp.
Hello, my name is David Albor. I'm Assistant Plant Manager of Nutrac Hemp in Blacksburg, Virginia. I'm here to show you guys how we take this wonderful Virginian-grown flower into concentrates and finish off into final products such as topicals, gummies, and salves. Follow me. So the first step of the process is what we call milling. So pretty much that's us taking this wonderful, beautiful flower, sort it into these bins that we hand sort and feed into the hammer mill to break it down to a nice consistency. What is a hammer mill? It's pretty much a giant oversized grinder that we use to break down flour. Now, as the hammer mill is activated, that screen and blades you see inside are speeding at a super high speed, breaking down the flour, and then as the cyclone vacuum we have here sucks up from this chute into this barrel, it fills up over time and give us products such as this flour. And then it has a nice perfect consistency, so as the alcohol runs through it, it strips all the cannabinoids, the terpenes, and all the lipids and fats in it to help us produce crude oil. So this is our GMP locker room. This room is meant strictly for us to make sure we have any protective items to prevent any contamination. So we use hair nets. If we have super long beards, we use beard nets, and then we use shoe coverings to help prevent any contamination within our super sanitized rooms, such as our extraction lab and our QC lab. We are now in the extraction lab. It is our first step in our process of producing concentrates. So pretty much we use those centrifuge bags that we filled up in our milling station and put into our centrifuge. It's a giant machine that has a bowl inside that we load up the hemp bags into, and we flood this bowl up with ethanol, and then we start extracting it by cycling through over a certain amount of time under a certain temperature too as well. And then as it cycles through, that alcohol starts getting filled up with cannabinoids, terpenes, and lipids and fats. And then we will send it through these bag filters you see right here. Our next step is recovery. That is pretty much when we have the ethanol that is infused with the cannabinoids. We send it through our falling film evaporator. That is pretty much using hot steam to help separate the alcohol from the cannabinoids. So there's a separation of vapor and cannabinoid. So the vapor will come up here and fall through our condensers to help recondense back into a liquid form. And we use that for our extraction process, pretty much helping us recycle and reuse. But while that is being done, our flash separator right here actually starts collecting of all the cannabinoids that didn't separate from the vapor and over time pulls up to a certain amount that we actually cook down and then send into our decarb tank. So these are our decarb reactors. Over time, throughout the whole process, this is our finishing point. So as these tanks fill up with all the cannabinoids, there's still a slight amount of ethanol within it, just so it's fluid enough to travel to this point. And then our purpose here is to make sure we get rid of all that residual solvent. Once all the solvent is gone and we decarb it to a certain temperature, all our acid-form cannabinoids converts into their more familiarly known cannabinoids such as CBD, CBG. So when we are finished, the finished product will look like this. This is crude oil. This is the first step of concentrates. This is literally taking all the material of the raw flower and just making it into a super higher concentrated form. This is our QC lab. So QC lab is pretty much our finishing stop of our process. So this is our short path machine. We take that crude oil that you saw in our extraction lab and fill up this machine with our crude oil and put it under a stronger vacuum and introduce heat to it. Over time, that oil will start breaking apart separately. First thing to always go is our terpenes. Now, as you see, it will come up here and the terpenes will start collecting in our flask. And then over time, after the terpenes are done, we start going to the middles, which is our favorite part because that's where the cannabinoids will start coming out. And over time, these flasks will start filling up and producing the cannabinoids, and that makes distillate. Distillate is usually typically between 80 to 85% potency, which is pretty high unless you go to the next step, which is isolate, which is almost like perfectly 99.9%. But we stop at the distillate mostly because that is usually the end of the organic route. With the distillate that we produce, we are able to make formulations such as topicals, oil, or my personal favorite, gummies. As you see right here, this is our truffly made gummy dispenser. Pretty much we make a gummy mixture with our distillate, load it up on top through our dispenser, and over time as it starts dispensing, we fill up our silicone molds with gummy mixtures and finish off making products such as the gummies you see right here.
Thank you for joining us today for the weekly podcast for the Virginia Cannabis Association. It was our pleasure to host you here at the facility of Nutrac Hemp in Blacksburg, Virginia. Our regular host, Brad Wynn, will be back next week. In the meantime, we want to remind you that this is a pivotal election year in Virginia. We want you to get out and talk to the candidates in your district for Virginia House of Delegates and for Virginia Senate, and urge them to support an adult use regulatory framework for the use of cannabis in Virginia. Until next week, this is Phil Lauer at Nutrac Hemp on behalf of the Virginia Cannabis Association, wishing you a good week.